Hello students, this is Dr. Ranjini. Welcome to e-learning sessions in immunology. Today we learn about antigen and antibody interaction in this session. In antigen and antibody interaction, first you will be learning about affinity. Affinity is the strength of the total non-covalent interactions between a single paratope and a single epitope. When the antigen binds to the antibody, the single antigen binding site and the single paratope region. So, the antigen, the region of the antigen which will interact with the antibody. So, between these two, the strength of the interaction, non-covalent interactions between the one antigenic determinant and one paratope is called as affinity. When the antigen reacts with the antibody, it will form the antigen-antibody complex. It will form the antigen-antibody complex. So, this antigen-antibody complex formation, the rate of the reaction, the affinity between the antigen and the antibody can be expressed, that is the affinity constant Ka is proportional to the concentration of the antigen and antibody complex divided by the concentration of the free antibody and the concentration of the free antigen which is there in the solution. That's what is represented here. That is the molar concentration of unoccupied binding sites on the antibody, and Ag, that is the molar concentration of unoccupied binding sites on the antigen. Then antigen and antibody, molar concentration of the antigen and antibody complex will tell you the affinity constant. Based on the affinity, the antibodies are classified into high affinity antibodies and low affinity antibodies. High affinity antibodies will strongly bind to antigen. Low affinity antibodies will be having the less strength of non-covalent interactions between the antigen and antibody. So, this non-covalent interactions between the antigen and the antibody involves the hydrogen bond, ionic bond, hydrophobic interaction and van der Waals interaction. Next, we will move on to avidity. Avidity is the measure of overall strength of an antigen and antibody complex. It's the overall strength of the multiple interactions between multivalent antibody and the antigen. We all know most of the antibodies are multivalent, IgG is bivalent, IgM is pentavalent, can bind up to 10 antigenic antigen molecule. It is depend on three major parameters. Avidity depends on the three major parameter. Affinity of the antibody for the epitope, whether it is high affinity or low affinity. Valency of both antibody and the antigen also determines the avidity. The structural arrangement of the parts that interact, the structural arrangement of the region of the antigen that interact with the antibody. All the antibodies are multivalent. Example, IgGs are bivalent. IgMs are, they are pentavalent, can bind up to 10 antigen molecules. The greater the immunoglobulin valency, the number of antigen binding site, the greater the amount of antigen can bind. Similarly, antigens can demonstrate multivalency because they can bind more than one antibody. Multimeric interactions between the antibody and an antigen help their stabilization. Avidity is the overall strength of the antigen and antibody complex. It depends on the affinity, valency of the antigen and antibody, structural arrangement of the antigen and antibody. All this will play an important role in determining the avidity of the antigen and antibody reaction. This is the example or the picture depicting the affinity and the avidity. Affinity is the interaction between the single antigenic determinant with the single paratope region on the antibody. What is paratope? It is the binding site of the antibody. It is the binding site on the antibody which will interact with the antigenic determinant. It's the single interaction between the one epitope and the one paratope, that is called as affinity. Whereas avidity is the sum total interaction between the more than one epitope and one paratope. It is the overall strength of the antigen and antibody complex. This is the IgM antibody and this is the IgG antibody. So here the antigen antibody complex involves more than one paratope and one epitope. Here also more than one paratope and one epitope is involved in the formation of antigen and antibody complex. Next we will move on to immunodiffusion. Immunodiffusion is a simple technique by which antigens and antibodies are placed in separate wells within a semi-solid surface, and then we will find the diffusion of both the antigen and antibody. The antigen and antibody solutions will be placed in separate wells and they will be allowed to mix through the support by diffusion. They diffuse from the higher concentration to lower concentration. When a zone of equivalence is reached, a line of precipitation or opaque line is formed. That precipitation will be visible when the light is passed through the gel. This simple technique launched the field of serology in the first part of 20th century and remains in use even today. And this immunodiffusion are of two types. They are used to determine the relative concentration of antibodies and antigens, to compare the antigens and to determine the relative purity of the antigen preparation, etc. They are radial immunodiffusion and it is otherwise called as the Mancini method, and another one is the double immunodiffusion or Ochterlony method. Both are carried out in a semi-solid media such as agar. First we will take up radial immunodiffusion. An antigen sample is placed in a well. Antigen sample is placed in a well and it is allowed to diffuse, and it is allowed to diffuse in the semi-solid agar surface which is already loaded with the antibody, which is already mixed with the different dilutions or suitable dilution of the antiserum. Prepare the agar bed, and when you are adding the agar, you mix that agar solution with the antibody. So all over the surface of the agar bed we will be having the antibody. Then you make the well at the center and at that center you load the antigen. Now this antigen will diffuse from the higher concentration to lower concentration in all directions, and when the equivalence zone is achieved, the area of the precipitin ring is formed. The area of precipitin ring is formed. This is the radial precipitin line that will be formed when the concentration of the antigen antibody complex is more than the equivalent concentration. The area of the precipitin ring is proportional to the concentration of the antigen. By comparing the area of the precipitin ring with the standard curve, the concentration of the antigen can be calculated in case of the radial immunodiffusion. So here there is diffusion of the antigen radially from its well all over the surface, and hence it is called as radial immunodiffusion, and this is also termed as Mancini method of immunodiffusion. Next we will move on to Ochterlony double diffusion or double immunodiffusion. Here the antigen and antibody both diffuse radially from the wells towards each other, thereby establishing a concentration gradient. As equivalence is reached, visible line of precipitation or the opaque line or the precipitin line forms in the single diffusion methods. Antibody is incorporated in the gel and the antigen is allowed to diffuse from one end to the another end. You take up Petri dish or the slide, prepare the 0.7% agar and you boil it and homogenize, and when it comes to around 55 to 60 degrees centigrade, pour the agar solution, allow to solidify, place it in the horizontal undisturbed place, and when it solidifies you make the wells. When it solidifies you make the wells. So you make the wells in such a way that the antigen and antibody wells are at equal distance from each other, and then you load the antibody at the center and the two antigens on either side, or now vice versa also, antigen at the center, antibodies on either side. So here antibody at the center and antigen on either side, and then allow the sample to diffuse in the moist chamber in a flat surface. And when you see the interaction between the antigen and antibody, when there is specificity between the antigen and the antibody, there will be formation of the opaque line that is called as the Presbyterian line. So this Presbyterian line is due to the formation of the antigen and antibody complex above the equivalence. So that will be visible, and the formation of this visible Presbyterian line will tell you the non-identity, partial identity, and identity between the antigen and the antibody. If you get the two opaque lines between the two antigens with the antibody, they are crossing over each other, that indicates that both the antigens are non-identical and they are binding to the antibody at the different antigenic determinant. If the Presbyterian line overlaps, it reaches the another Presbyterian line. This show certain partial identity between the antigens. And if you get the continuous Presbyterian line, this shows that both the antigens are same and they show the identity, or they have the structural similarity, and hence they are interacting with the antibody. So this is Auchterlonie double diffusion, which will tell you the specificity between the antigen and antibody, and here both the concentration as well as the titer can be estimated. It is called double diffusion because both antigen and antibody will diffuse, and they diffuse radially in the semi-solid agar surface. Next we will move on to the precipitation reactions. Antibody and the soluble antigen interacting in aqueous solution. Earlier what you saw, that is immunodiffusion in the semi-solid gel surface. But in the aqueous solution also, the antigen and antibody, they interact. When there is specificity, there is formation of the lattice. There is formation of the lattice that eventually develops into visible precipitate. That will eventually develops into visible precipitate. And when these soluble reactants, the soluble reactants are antigen and antibody, when they come together, they form the insoluble product, that is the precipitate. These reactions depend on the formation of the lattice or the crosslinks when the antigen and antibody exist in the optimal proportions. And here the formation of an antigen and antibody lattice depends on the valency of both antibody and the antigen. The antibody must be bivalent. A precipitate will not form with the monovalent FAB fragments. The antigen must be either bivalent or polyvalent. That is, it must have at least two copies of the same epitope or have different epitopes that react with different antibodies present in polyclonal anti-serum. So this is regarding precipitation reaction. Next we will move on to ELISA. Here heading is not incorporated. This technique is ELISA, enzyme linked immunosorbent assay. There are different types of ELISA: direct ELISA, indirect ELISA, sandwich ELISA, competitive ELISA. These are the types. Before moving on to the types, first we should know what is ELISA. Enzyme linked immunosorbent assay. Here the polystyrene plate will be taken, and this has the capacity of binding to either antigen or to the antibody, and it will be having the series of wells, can accommodate up to 200 microliter of the reaction mixture, and they are placed one after the other. And this polystyrene plate will be coated with either antigen or with antibody. First we will take up the coating of the antigen or coating of antibody. if you take the antibody is coated on the polystyrene plate, then you will be adding the antigen. There will be formation of the antigen antibody complex. And before starting the experiment, your antibodies should be enzyme tagged, like horseradish peroxidase or other enzymes will be used in diagnosis or identification of the antigen antibody complex. When there is binding of antigen to the antibody, they form the antigen antibody complex. The formation of this complex will tell you the specificity of this antigen with the antibody, and this complex can be detected by using the enzyme substrate reaction. When this enzyme reacts with the specific substrate, it results in the formation of the product. Usually the enzyme will be tagged in such a way that will produces the colored product. That can be the measured or will be quantified. Intensity of the color developed will be corresponding to the concentration of antigen and antibody, can be measured in the ELISA reader at particular wavelength of light. So that is the principle here. So you have the antibody that will be tagged with the enzyme, will be allowed to interact with the antigen, and when there is specific interaction between the antigen and antibody, there is formation of the antigen antibody complex, and that complex will be visualized in the ELISA reader by checking the intensity. Now to the polystyrene plate, the coating of, you can either opt for coating of antigen or coating of the antibody. First we will take up direct ELISA. Here the antigen is coated to the polystyrene plate. It will be kept overnight. After that it will be washed to remove unbound antigens. Then we will be adding the enzyme tagged primary antibody at particular concentration, and then after allowing the antibody to interact with the antigen for about 2 to 3 hours, it will be washed to remove. Intermittently 2 or 3 washes will be given in order to remove unbound antibodies. Now if this specificity is there with the antigen, there will be formation of antigen antibody complex, and this complex formation will be visualized by adding the substrate. So this substrate will interact with the enzyme and it will give the colored product that will be measured by the ELISA reader. Intensity will be measured in the ELISA reader. That is called direct ELISA. There is direct detection of the antigen which is coated in the ELISA plate. Next is indirect ELISA. Here in direct ELISA, the antibody which is specific to the antigen is tagged with the enzyme. So this is primary antibody. This primary antibody is specific to the antigen. Next we will go on to the indirect ELISA. In indirect ELISA, again antigen is coated overnight, unbound antigen is removed by washing. Then we are adding the primary antibodies which are specific to the antigenic determinants on the antigen. We are adding the primary antibodies which are specific to the antigenic determinants on the antigens. Then there is formation of antigen antibody complex if specificity is there. Then it will be washed to remove the unbound antibody. After that, the complex of this antigen and antibody complex will be detected by using the another antibody that is called as secondary antibody. What is this? This is the primary antibody which is raised against the antigen. Now we are detecting this antigen antibody complex using the secondary antibody. Usually this secondary antibody will be against the host IgG molecules. That means these primary antibodies are raised either in rabbit or in mice or in chicken or in goat. Now secondary antibody what we are using, which is enzyme tagged, will be against the IgG of goat or IgG of rabbit, IgG of mice or IgG of the birds. So such type of antibodies which are against the immunoglobulins of the host cell in which you raise the primary antibody. They are called as secondary antibody, and these usually will be tagged with the enzyme. Here they are recognizing the antigen antibody complex. So you have the antigen, to that primary antibody is attached, and this complex is recognized by the secondary antibody that is tagged to the enzyme. Now you add the substrate, there will be formation of the product which is colored, will be read in the ELISA reader. Here indirectly we are assessing the concentration of the antigen that is coated to the ELISA plate. This is indirect ELISA. Next is another type, sandwich ELISA. Sandwich ELISA, as the name suggests, there is the antigen which will be sandwiched between the two antibodies, primary as well as the secondary antibody. Here what they do is, initially ELISA plate will be taken and to that antibody will be coated, primary antibody will be coated. Then they will wash it to remove the unbound primary antibody. Then they will add the antigen which will bind to the primary antibody if specificity is there. Then this antigen and antibody complex will be detected by adding the secondary antibody which is tagged to the enzyme. So this secondary antibody will be designed in such a way that it will be complementary to the another antigenic determinant of the same antigen. Another antigenic determinant of the same antigen. You have the antigen here. Initially we have coated the plate with the primary antibody which is targeted to the particular antigenic determinant A. We will consider this as A antigenic determinant. Now antigen antibody complex is formed. Now we are adding the secondary antibody which is targeted to the another antigenic determinant of the same antigen. Then it is called as the sandwich ELISA. Here the antigen is sandwiched between primary antibody and the secondary antibody. This is sandwich ELISA. Next, another type is the competitive ELISA. Another type is competitive ELISA. Here you will have the aqueous solution of the antigen and antibody and they will be mixed. So the specific antigen will bind to the antibody and they form the antigen antibody solution, and then incubated, and the sample containing the antigen and antibody will be mixed and it will be incubated, and then this antigen and antibody mixture is then added to the antigen coated polystyrene plate or the microtiter plate. Now the free antibodies which are not bound to the antigen will compete with the antigen which is there on the surface of the polystyrene plate, and then there will be formation of the antigen antibody complex. So this is competitive ELISA. So ELISA is very important technique. It is used in diagnosis of various infectious diseases. ELISA is used in the detection of HIV also. Like that, many other infectious diseases can be identified using ELISA if you have the antiserum for the specific antigen. Next we will move on to the Western blotting. The title is not incorporated here. It is Western blotting. Before learning the Western blotting, you should know the meaning of the term blotting. Blotting is the process of transfer of the biomolecules from the gel to the inert membrane. This membrane may be nitrocellulose membrane or the nylon membrane. Here the biomolecule may be your nucleic acid or it may be your protein that will be transferred from the gel to the membrane. The process of transfer of the protein from the electrophoretic gel to the membrane is called as the Western blotting. What is Western blotting? Western blotting is the process of transfer of the protein from the gel to the inert membrane is called as the Western blotting. Identification of a specific protein in complex mixture of proteins can be done by this technique. It is called Western blotting. It is named after its similarity with the Southern blotting. Southern blotting is a technique which was discovered by the scientist T.M. Southern to transfer the DNA to the membrane. Then to differentiate between the transfer of DNA and RNA, the Northern blotting was termed, where it is used to transfer the RNA. So Southern blotting is for DNA transfer, Northern blotting is for RNA transfer. Next is the transfer of protein from gel to the membrane is called Western blotting. In Western blotting, the total protein is isolated and it is separated on the electrophoresis by the SDS page. And this SDS page will separate the protein and it will give the negative charge to the whole protein. The protein bands are transferred to the membrane, PVDF membrane, either by the manual method or by the electrotransfer. For high efficient transfer of the protein to the membrane, usually they go for electrotransfer using the electrode, and now the membrane will be placed, and then will be, first we'll take up the gel, above which we'll place the membrane. On either side you will be having the electrodes. Same thing is depicted here. This is the negative electrode. You have the gel and then you will place the membrane. Above the membrane we will place the filter papers or the sponge will be kept, and there will be the positive electrode. Now we know this SDS page will impart the negative charge to the protein. When you provide the current to this electrotransfer unit, now the proteins are negatively charged. They move from the negative electrode towards the positive electrode. When they are moving, these proteins will be moving towards the positive electrode. They have to pass through the membrane, that is the inert membrane. So this membrane will hold the protein. So this electrotransfer will be done for very short duration to transfer the protein from gel to the membrane. After that, the membrane will be taken out and this will be blocked with a skim milk powder for overnight to block the unbound surfaces on the surface of the membrane. Later, it will be washed in the next morning and will be allowed to bind with the primary antibody, which is complementary to the specific protein that is separated in the electrophoretic gel, and then it is transferred to the membrane. Later, it will be incubated for 2 to 3 hours. It will be washed after primary antibody incubation and to remove the unbound primary antibody. Then it will be incubated with the secondary antibody, which is tagged with the enzyme. As we all know, secondary antibodies are specific to the primary antibodies and they bind to the primary antibody, which is already bound to the surface of the antigen, or it is already bound to the surface of the protein that is transferred to the membrane. Now, after adding the secondary antibody, again it will be incubated for 1.5 hours at a specific temperature after 37 degrees centigrade. After that, it will be washed. It will be washed to remove the unbound secondary antibody, and this enzyme will be tagged to the secondary antibody. Specific substrate will be added to get the color. Colored product. So this colored product will tell you the presence of the secondary antibody, in turn will tell you the presence of the primary antibody and then the antigen, because it is the complex of antigen, or the protein attached to the primary antibody that will be complexed with a secondary antibody. So this enzyme, when it reacts with a substrate, it results in the formation of the colored product. You will get the colored banding pattern on the blot. So that presence of the colored banding pattern will indicate the presence of the protein. Absence of the colored banding pattern will indicate the absence of the protein. So this is called Western blotting. Western blotting is the transfer of the protein from the SDS page gel to the inert membrane, PVDF membrane, and detecting the presence of the protein on the membrane by using the primary and secondary antibody. So this is very important in various diagnostic tests, and in all these conditions, in ELISA as well as in Western blotting, we require primary antibody and secondary antibody. So in this session, we learned the antigen antibody interactions, various antigen antibody interactions like affinity, avidity, precipitation reaction, ELISA and Western blotting. And also we learnt about immunodiffusion. I hope you understood this session. Thank you.